At 61, Johnny Depp is speaking out in ways he never did before. After years of silence, public battles, and emotional turmoil, he is now beginning to share the truth behind decisions that once left the world perplexed. Depp, a man whose life was once defined by Hollywood's glare, now admits that the life people imagined for him was far from the one he lived. This isn't a confession for sympathy, but rather a reclaiming of the pieces of himself that Hollywood and the public had stripped away. His return is not about regaining fame or fortune, but about finding peace and healing from years of turmoil and grief. The disappearance from Hollywood, a retreat for survival. In 2023, Johnny Depp made a decision that shocked everyone who had followed his life closely. He left Hollywood without a single word of explanation. He packed up his life in Los Angeles and moved to Somerset, England, quietly disappearing from public view. Fans and reporters accustomed to seeing him constantly in the spotlight searched for answers, but none came. For nearly a year, Depp vanished, not out of desire for mystery, but because he needed to heal. In a rare interview, he explained that he wasn't hiding, he was simply trying to find peace. His quiet life in Somerset allowed him to breathe freely, away from the chaos and judgment that had dominated his life for decades. Life in Somerset, finding solace in simplicity. Johnny Depp's life in Somerset was not about luxury or excitement. Instead, he embraced a simpler, quieter existence, waking before dawn and taking long walks in nature. He spent hours reading outside and found comfort in the stillness of the countryside. Those close to him noted that he barely spoke in the first months after his move. This wasn't because he was angry or bitter, but because he was exhausted. For someone who had spent half his life in the spotlight, constantly under scrutiny, this silence offered him the peace he had long been craving. Depp had spent years performing for the world, and now in Somerset, he was simply living. The healing power of art, painting as therapy. During his time in Somerset, Johnny Depp turned to an old passion, painting. What had once been a hobby became a therapeutic outlet for all the pain, grief, and emotional turmoil he had endured over the years. His art was raw, surreal, and deeply personal. It reflected the fractures and scars he had collected in his journey through betrayal, public humiliation, and the collapse of his Hollywood identity. When his collection, A Bunch of Stuff, debuted in New York in 2024, it took many by surprise. The paintings were dreamlike and haunting, filled with muted tones and empty spaces. They were not designed for applause, but for healing. Through painting, Depp was finally able to process the grief that he had never been able to express before. Music, returning to his first love. Alongside his art, music called Johnny Depp back to life. Music had always been his first love, long before fame and movies. In 2023, he reunited with Alice Cooper and Joe Perry to perform with the Hollywood Vampires. This time, however, his performances were not driven by the need for fame or approval. Instead, Depp used music as a form of healing. When the band performed David Bowie's Heroes, Depp's voice carried a softness that was unmistakably different from his past wild energy. It wasn't about the performance anymore, it was about survival. Music became his refuge, helping him process emotions and reconnect with himself in a way that Hollywood had never allowed. Sobriety and reflection, a quiet transformation. Since late 2022, Johnny Depp had chosen sobriety. This decision wasn't made publicly or through rehab programs. It was a private commitment to regain control over his body and mind. The change was visible to those who knew him. He had lost weight, and his eyes looked clearer. The tension that once haunted his features had softened. He no longer sought the chaotic nightlife that had once defined him. Instead, he embraced routines that grounded him, like walking in the early mornings and reading in his garden. Depp's transformation was not just physical, but emotional, and it was clear that he was finally at peace with himself. The Amber Heard trial. A bitter chapter. No chapter of Johnny Depp's life has been more painful than his legal and emotional battle with Amber Heard. What began in 2016 with allegations of abuse quickly spiraled into a public and brutal trial that shook the entertainment industry. Depp remained silent at first, assuming the truth would prevail on its own. However, the silence only deepened the damage. Studios cut ties with him, and the public narrative turned against him. In 2020, a failed defamation case in the UK against The Sun further shattered his reputation. He withdrew from public life, and the media portrayed him as unstable. Yet, in 2020, a leaked audio recording shifted the narrative when Heard admitted to hitting Depp. This revelation led to a defamation lawsuit in 2022, a pivotal moment in the fight for his reputation. The trial and its aftermath, reclaiming his voice. Johnny Depp's defamation trial in 2022 was a turning point in his life. For 6 weeks, the world watched as Depp shared the painful details of his relationship with Amber Heard. He recounted years of emotional and physical torment, and the testimony from over 30 witnesses revealed the truth behind the allegations. When the jury ruled in Depp's favor, it marked a victory, but not a restoration. Depp later admitted that he didn't fight for victory, but for survival. The emotional wounds from the trial ran deep, and while the legal victory cleared his name, it didn't erase the pain. Depp isolated himself for 2 months afterward, processing the emotional toll of years of public scrutiny and personal betrayal. A quiet rebirth, living on his own terms. After the trial, something in Johnny Depp fundamentally changed. No longer burdened by the weight of public opinion, he began to embrace a life of stillness. In Somerset, he found peace and simplicity, walking at dawn, reading in his garden, and quietly donating books to the local library. His physical transformation mirrored his emotional one. He grew leaner and healthier, not because of Hollywood's pressures, but because he was finally taking care of himself. Depp's return to the public eye was no longer about regaining old glory, but about choosing a life that was authentically his. He was no longer trying to prove himself to anyone. He was simply living. Returning to film, a quiet re-emergence. In 2023, Johnny Depp made his return to cinema with the film Jean du Barry, marking his first public appearance since the trial. The premiere was met with a standing ovation, not just for his performance, but for the strength he had shown in surviving the public dissection of his life. Depp's return to film was not driven by a desire for fame or redemption, but by a desire to create meaningful art. Director Moen chose Depp for the role because of his unique ability to portray depth and vulnerability. For Depp, this marked a shift in his approach to work. No longer motivated by the pressures of Hollywood, he was now choosing roles that reflected the truths of his own life. Choosing roles with purpose, a new approach to acting. Johnny Depp's future roles are now being defined by purpose rather than popularity. His role in Day Drinker, a somber drama, marked a significant departure from his past blockbuster films. Director Mark Webb chose Depp for the role because of his ability to embody vulnerability. Depp's next project, Carnival at the End of Days, saw him cast as Satan, a role that allowed him to explore darkness with a calm inner strength. Depp is no longer looking for fame. He is seeking roles that reflect the quiet wisdom he has gained through his personal journey. His choices are now driven by art, not applause. A life of meaning, living beyond Hollywood. Johnny Depp's journey has been one of reinvention, healing, and quiet strength. At 61, he is no longer chasing a career in Hollywood. Instead, he is living a life that is authentically his. His return to Somerset, his art, his sobriety, and his return to music and film all reflect a man who has shed the personas forced upon him by the entertainment industry. Depp is no longer the product of Hollywood's expectations. He is a man who has faced his darkest moments and emerged stronger for them. Now, as he moves forward, the question remains, will he return to Hollywood or continue the peaceful life he has built for himself? His story is a reminder that life isn't about the roles we play for others, but the life we choose to live for ourselves.